What attracted me to do research in that lake? Well, for that you have to know about my researches during this at least 3 decades. In 85, between 85 and 89, I have been doing the research in the original homeland of the Blue people in Quang Tri province. And at that time, we focused with our Vietnamese colleagues and friends on a more or less original traditional culture of the Blue. These Blue people at that time were completely isolated. They lived in the forest in one village. They knew money, but practically it was not used because they did not have earnings. So they were self-sustaining, independent people in the forest, living a traditional culture. And the aim of our research was to uncover these aspects of their life. So a completely traditional minority life way in the mountains and in the forest. Now, during the history, during independence war against the Americans, quite a lot of Blue people were resettled into Dakhla province. That's when they originated. It was in 72 that they were resettled. And since then, more than 5,000 people live in a completely new environment. And amongst other minorities than before, and especially among an overwhelming Vietnamese King population. Now, this is a totally different situation, and I was really interested in the question what this different situation could cause in culture. That is, what is the cultural change? And in anthropology, this has been a traditional question. Anthropology is always concerned on the present. We do research on what is now today, what is their culture, their society like. Now, obviously, this is a synchronic view, and if we want to know what is a chronologically diachronic change, then we have to wait some 10, 15, 20 years and make what we call a re-study. Now, I wanted to do this re-study in a completely different situation, so it's not only that I did not visit the Blue in Quang Tri again, but in order to see an even more pronounced culture change, I have chosen the resetting Blue in Dakhla. So this is why I made a study of them, and this is in a way a re-study, but not of the same population, but of a new population. And obviously, everything was different. These Blue people live now among Vietnamese people. Their standard of living is much higher than that of the Blue in Quang Tri. They do speak their language in their homes, but in school they are taught in Vietnamese. And especially economically speaking, they do not do any more slash and burn agriculture, but they are cultivating coffee. They are coffee producers on the world market, and as you know, coffee is one of the main export items of Dakhla and of Vietnam generally speaking, and the best coffee in Vietnam is in Dakhla. So these people have changed completely their way of life. They are now part of the world global market, which influenced obviously their whole culture. And the aim of my research in Dakhla was to see this change and how they produce coffee, what they produce, and how all this influence their culture. How this influence, for instance, not only their ways of life, but, for instance, religion. How coffee producing and how the change from self-sustainment and slash and burn agriculture into coffee production can change on their religion, because religion, as usual, is always tied up with all the other aspects of their culture. And before, a great part of the religion focused on what we would call the agricultural cycle, on rice production, on dry rice production. Here, dry rice is not anymore grown, and coffee is a new imported item. So the religious environment is totally different. So this is why I have chosen aquatic.